to be flowering. Her talents are well, not flowering, I would say flying, birding.
Because I have nothing else to do out here. My students are missing in action, so
Oh,
I'll have to find entertainment, you see.
Do we start, Madhu?
I think we can.
Yeah.
So just let me check on. Yes, great. Um, so good afternoon and welcome everyone. This is our second panel discussion of the discussion forum for online teaching. And today we want to discuss something which is very, very important and I think bothering most of us, which is about evaluation and assessment. Because I think we are all at loss
KPN
how to
Murthy,
be
come through.
handling the.
KPN, this noise.
Yeah, I've muted. And for some of you who are joining us for the first time, we have a website. Please go to the website. We have some tips and articles on how to handle online teaching. The idea of this entire exercise is for us to find some collective solutions to common problems. Because I think all of us are in the same boat. We are trying to figure out how to teach, how to evaluate, and how to rework an entire framework which is new to us. And also help the students who are even more stressed than we are. So uh, today's panel is very interesting, at least for me, because it spans across from, Angel, who deals primarily with higher secondary education and at that level, all the way to, the university professors and, from IIT. Um, all the participants, I request you to please type in your questions into the chat boxes, both in Zoom and on YouTube. They will be collated and posted to the panelists either during this program or after this is done. And we'll be checking, on and off to collect the questions. Today's panel discussion will be chaired by Professor Ram Ramswamy of IIT Delhi. And I request him to take over and introduce the other panelists.
One more thing, there's a Slack channel you forgot.
Yes. We do have a Slack channel where we have a lot of conversation happening. We share a lot of tips, across even disciplines, because sometimes, like quite a couple of days ago, we realized that there was somebody who wanted to know how to teach mathematical physics online, and the resource was available with the Max channel. So, this conversation is happening on Slack. It would be really useful for all of you who are not on Slack to please join, and those of you who are there to please contribute your ideas, tips, and tricks. Please do that. Thank you.
Okay. Uh, thank you, Madhu, and let me start by welcoming all of you to the second of the panel discussions that we are having for this discussion forum. Um, See, the idea that we all have to teach online, we have to teach online because of external forces, all right? We've all been told that classes have to go online, there are no choices as such. And all of us are facing problems on various fronts. The 2 weeks ago, we discussed this whole issue of how you can keep your students engaged while you're teaching into a screen where you have no feedback, etc., etc. Now, like most of these issues, we have to come up with solutions for ourselves because our students they come from very varied demographics. We know that almost 30% of our students don't have access to smartphones or to high end laptops and so on and so forth. So we have to deal with that. We know that many of our students are located in places where the net doesn't function as ideally as one might want. As a matter of fact, I'm today in my office at IIT because I cannot have an uninterrupted connection to the net. Even I live in South Delhi, which is arguably one of the most well-connected places in the city, but still, private connections. We have these issues of power and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, with this background, there have been attempts to somehow have examinations as if things were quite normal. As we speak, the issue of the IIT entrance exam, the JEE, is it's occupying the nation because it's a very important exam, and questions of how it is to be held, etc., in such times is something that people have been worried about. A lot of us have been also worried about the fact that when the lockdown happened, the final year students, the ones who were going to have graduated by the middle of this year, they had to have examinations and evaluations conducted, but with social distancing it was impossible. So the question of what should be done, people started talking about having online exams, then worrying about whether online exams is suitable for graduating students, and so on and so forth. And so what we felt is that this is a matter that actually affects all of us. We have no clear answers, but yet each institution is trying its best way of coping with these issues. So we tried to put together a group of people who are addressing this question from very different parts of the spectrum. So our panel today consists of Professor Qudsiya Tehseen from Aligarh Muslim University. She teaches biology, and there are issues to do with evaluating a subject or in whichever way it is when there is a strong experimental component. How does one do something like that? That's Professor Qudsiya Tehseen from Aligarh. The second panelist is Professor Samir Sapra from IIT Delhi, where IIT has, of course, a very different set of resources at its disposal, and there are students, many of whom have access to the net and so on and so forth. But Samir has recently been conducting examinations and using open software, Moodle, etc. And he's been an enthusiastic champion of some of these tools and techniques. And it would be nice to know what he thinks about it and what he how he implements this. And then we have Dr. Angel Ratnabai from the NCERT, and she has been concerned about online evaluation at the school level, at the higher secondary level. But being part of the NCERT means that she brings a certain kind of a discipline and a viewpoint which comes from that part of that spectrum. And finally, we have Professor Padma Sarangapani from the Tata Institute of Social Studies, who is an educationist. And the question of how does, how important is it, and what types of evaluation are possible for, from a purely educational point of view, how does one evaluate pedagogy, learning, teaching, and so on. So these are very different kinds of backgrounds that people will have, and what I'm going to request is that each of the panelists speaks for about 10 minutes, and we'll have questions for everybody and for each other later on. And some of the issues that I would like that you could, if you could address, we circulated some of these to you already. The questions that we would like to cover during this panel discussion are keeping in mind your institution and your students, so the subject, where your students come from, etc. How do you feel online courses could be evaluated? Is it possible for your own course, or do we need some other kind of hybrid models? What kinds of software do you use? Do you want to use? What are the evaluation tools that are available to teachers? One is the tools that anybody can go onto the net and look, and the other is what does the institution demand? What tips can you share with others? One type of evaluation that has been talked about, I mean, there was even an interview that the Hindu carried out with Professor Alag and myself on open book examinations. So, since people feel that open book examinations are somehow very novel, what do you feel about it? An important issue on these kinds of evaluations, which are not proctored examinations or not easily proctored examinations, are what about cheating and plagiarism? Is this a concern for you, and how do you think we can cope with that? And then the question is, if your lectures are synchronous or asynchronous, is there a way in which you can conduct quizzes and so on and so forth? One issue that I just want to flag for everybody is that many of our students take our online courses on their cell phones. They do not have laptops and tablets and stuff like that. And the cell phone has, as we all know, a fairly small format. It's 3 inches by 5 inches, or even the largest ones are not much larger than that. Can one actually examine somebody when this is their only means of communicating with you? So these are also issues that I'd like you to consider. And let's start this discussion now in the order in which I introduced the 4 panelists. Let me first ask Professor Qudsiya Tehseen, would you speak over the next 10 minutes or so and let us know how you feel about this whole business? So Qudsiya ji, would you unmute yourself and start, please?
Yes. Okay. A very good afternoon to everybody. And at the outset, I'd like to thank the chair, Professor Ramasamy, and the moderator, Professor Madhurima, for inviting me to this forum, which is really very important. And today we are going to discuss online evaluation and the ways of evaluating online classes. So I do hope that this discussion and interaction with the fellow panelists, as well as the colleagues who are watching from the teaching community, or the other students or related people, definitely a type of interaction with a collective wisdom, I think that we will get some effective solutions. Because the problem is not very simple, but it is very intricate type of problem, and we are all having different types of circumstances to face. So it is really a difficult time during this pandemic, and coincidentally, the lockdown period that actually, that started when about half or 2/3 of the course was covered. And then at that time, a lot of anxiety was observed in the teachers because everybody was rushing to finish the courses or complete the courses. And most of them, they were, including me also, we were not savvy about these technical tools. So it was actually by and large, the teaching was through transfer of the material, that most of the time the material was transferred through Google Classroom or through WhatsApp. Some people, they even used emails. And in AMU also, because I belong to Aligarh Muslim University, so here also we actually tried our best, right from the different departments of the university to the affiliated colleges and even the schools. We all tried to, just deliver as much as possible through various modes. So that's why we had different modes of teaching. Some people, they opted for WhatsApp. Some people, they went for Google Classroom. Even some people, they actually started doing classes on Zoom as well as WebEx. But actually the problem again was the same, that not all the students, they were coming from the same background and they did not have the same type of facilities. So it was really, a problem, and most of the time the material was uploaded on the web or even through Google Classroom. Then after that, the examination time, because the examination time that passed during that period, the lockdown period, that really devoured that period of examination. And then we had the MHRD guidelines that adopted the policy of, the promotion was there to the middle classes, the courses which were in the middle, and the final year or final semester students, they were actually supposed to be assessed or evaluated. And then again, we had to come up with some of the strategy which would have been very feasible and which would be effective also. So definitely online examination system that appears very, you can say, attractive, because it has got, it reduces the cost. It has got, I mean, it even reduces the effort that is there in the during the invigilation or even evaluation, because some of the softwares which are there, they actually even evaluate the answer sheets. But again, the same problem was there, that even the teachers, they were not very comfortable with those processes. Most of the teachers, I should say, because some of them really are tech savvy, but it is not applicable for all. And at the same time, the students also, they were facing problem, because how can we ask them to download the question paper at one time when they are having net connectivity problem and other type of problems. And that's why we started working out just to have some system which should be convenient for all. And then at that time, again, it was decided that, I mean, initially, if you see, that is, the university had decided that there would be evaluation in two phases, like 70% allocation will be there on the formative assessment, like it would be through the classes individually, the teacher, they I mean, ask for the tests, different, I mean, in different ways. Some people, they actually gave quizzes or MCQs, or others they. So during the period of the classes, and then after that, there was 30% marks they were attributed to the online examination. Like, and then that examination also was, again, I mean, a thing of concern, because we had the student which were coming from very remote areas. They even say that they don't have the proper connectivity. Sometimes they will have the net, and sometimes they will not have. Even the students from Kashmir who are only having the 2G facility. So we had students of that type also. Some students were from the South Asian countries, even some students, I mean, we had a student from Afghanistan also, some Middle East countries. So there was a problem of connectivity, and at the same time, it was difficult that everybody would be able to download the papers or MCQs. And then we opted that there should be a Viva Voce examination. So Viva Voce examination was conducted, and again, the same thing, that we cannot use those video, I mean, video integrated apps like Zoom or WebEx, because again, WhatsApp was the most convenient one, which actually, again, we use the video calls, but again, the connectivity was a problem. So it was really, you can say that we faced the problem, and then we also, I mean, try to have some solution of that. And in that way, the examinations were conducted. But as you said, that some subjects, you know, they are having a problem, like lab exercises or lab examination. How will we go for that? Even the lab classes that we have to take, or that is when the students, they are there for the lab classes, how will they conduct the lab exercises? Because it is a problem in life sciences. We don't have any such type of exercises where there is no interaction. We have the interaction with we have to do the interaction with the organisms, or even there are various types of surveys. There are various, I mean, during the project work also, there was a problem, because this project work is actually an integrated part of particularly the PG courses, the seminar presentation as well as the project work. And then also, because the project work could not be accomplished properly, so we asked the students to write a review, because whatever topic they chose, and then they had to write a comprehensive review, just like any type of review article, but they should include all the important issues in that. And then that was actually a type of bibliographic work that they had to conduct. And then after that, they presented that work, and it was like a defense type of thing. And then I mean, the questions were asked, and then they were evaluated on the basis of that. But still, you will see that the lab exercises, they were always a problem, because whatever exercises were conducted before, the record books, they were scanned and they were submitted. But afterwards, we only had to demonstrate about the exercises, what were those exercises, what was the relevance of those exercises, because in absence of some simulation models or any type of that type of framework we were missing. And so only we had to suffice with the Viva Voce examination. So this is actually the state of affairs, because we always are looking for some new things, because we have entered a time when online teaching and learning has to be part and parcel of our business. So definitely we have to analyze different ways of assessment and the different types of, you can say, softwares which should be more friendly. And of course, when we go for such advancement, again, when we look back, then we find the same old problems, like some students, they are coming from poor financial backgrounds, or even the proper, they may not have enough money to pay for the 2G expenses per day. Even you will find that is a problem. Bandwidth is a problem. Connectivity issues are there. So again, that means we are actually, I'm sometimes I really feel bad that it is actually a divide which is being created. Some who are having it between the have and have nots, because some who are having it, they can opt for better facilities, but those who are not having, they really are perturbed. They are not,
It's a good
getting
point,
it.
Kulseji.
Yes.
Well, I was just going to ask you, how many students are there in the class that you're teaching?
I teach postgraduate, that is MSc, so they are having 40 students.
40 students. So,
40
just to get an idea of the kind of sizes that we are grappling with. No, I think you've
Yeah.
articulated many of the problems that we face, in terms of connectivity and so on and so forth. And you also said how you've managed to do some kind of evaluation based on Viva Voce, WhatsApp, all the things that we make fun of, but now we are all having to turn to.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so thanks. Let's move to the next panelist, Samir Sapra. Samir, unmute thyself and can you hear about your experience of
Yes,
online
sure.
evaluations, please?
Thanks, Ram, and thanks, Madhurima, for bringing me here. And well, Ram, I'm not a champion of anything out here, but I've just been forced to do all these things like most others. So I'm going to share my experience. Is it possible that I can share I made a small presentation.
Sure.
Okay. So is the screen visible?
Not yet.
Something is visible? No.
Visible, it's visible.
Something is visible, but not the, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, so I would like you to note down my website, because it could be useful for a few things which I'm going to tell you. All right. Now, when I started all these online activities, even before that, I had a few things which I was equipped with, and I felt it was really very, very comfortable because I had these things. So let me tell you these things, and this is something which I would expect that everybody who's into online teaching should really buy these things, invest into these things, and it's not very expensive. So have a second monitor. It really helps you for a lot of activities. Okay, a standard camera, microphone, and this fellow is a tablet writer with which I can actually write everything and use it like a blackboard. So having two screens means I can share one screen, and on the other screen I can still continue my chat activities, or I could use a recording software on the other screen. So it makes my life much simpler than using a simple one screen device. And why I told about my website is because I have been recording my lectures online for the last 7-8 years. And if you go to my website and see my courses, well, these were all offline lectures, contact lectures, but I decided that I should record. And I've done it in the similar fashion by recording the screen. So there are many, many screen recording softwares which I use. So investing is one thing that you really need to do if you want to have a smoother experience of online teaching. Now, although these are not required, but if you have a spare laptop and a spare net connection, it helps a lot. You know, Ram would agree with me that the IITD Wi-Fi is also not 100% reliable. So sometimes I have to use my mobile phone connection and get on with it. So rather than waiting for things, you have something spare, it does help. Now, it's most important to choose a correct platform. Since Ram was asking about the number of students, currently I'm teaching a batch that is 550 odd students. And I have graded in 2 different batches. So we in IIT, we had these all these crazy things of advanced graduating program where we had to do grading for the passing out batch. And unluckily, I teach a first year course, but unluckily there were about 8 students who had not managed to clear that course for the last 5 years. So somehow we had to do some exams for that. So I had a batch of 8 people over there and the rest of them 550 odd people out here. So we've been grading both ways. So choose a platform. So I did a quick search on Google and I saw that this is the order that it gives if you're worried about bandwidth. And that's the most pertinent issue. I feel that bandwidth is something which one really needs to worry about, given the fact that we have 2G connections and everything. So Teams comes out on top, Zoom is there. Impartus is another thing. Meet and Skype, and then the list goes on. I think there are about 40 odd different platforms which you can choose. There are lots of them which are free, up to about 100 students. But when you come to 550 or 1,000 batch students, then I don't think there's any free software that is available. So the institute has to invest somewhere. IIT has particularly invested in Impartus, Teams, and Moodle. So although Moodle is free up to, I think, 50 or 100 students again. The most important thing which I realized once I started teaching on Teams was that you need a platform where you can mute the students, okay? They are a naughty bunch. I mean, I thought I was one, but they are not here. They can chuck out other students of the course. You know, Teams, one has to really work hard with Teams to get all the options right. So if you are a techie or you have some help, it's fine. Otherwise, you know, you could go for Impartus. With one click, you can just control everybody. So there are these different things which one really has to worry about. Recording is another thing. Since we are in a world where there is limited connectivity and different parts of the country, so having your lectures recorded and then post them on YouTube. There are many free recording softwares you can record. And with the tablet writer that I have, I can use it as a Blackboard. I can record the screen. It records my voice. I don't think they need to see my face every time, but the other camera can do that in these recording softwares if you want that. So everything is there. You record it and put it online. I myself have benefited from a lot of online lectures. I mean, being a chemist, I have studied all my solid state physics from Oxford online lectures. Okay, so coming to that, I think it completely depends on the students. If they really want to learn, learning in the online mode can be as effective as an offline mode. So learning, okay, that is the main thing, learning. That's completely up to them. So yeah, you upload on YouTube and then they have the option of watching it later or whenever they have electricity or much better connection, right? So this is something that helps. Now, I'm supposed to tell you something about evaluation, which is the most difficult part out of all these things. And out of which proctoring happens to be the most difficult part. Now, in a batch of 8 students, when I evaluated them, then I told them to keep their cameras on and I could see them what they're doing. But when it comes to a larger batch, even 40 students for that matter, I think online proctoring is going to be very tough, right? So I rather would say that, although it's not the right thing to say, but I would rather say that, okay, forget about proctoring. So come with some alternative methods. Okay. Now, there are many different options available: Google, Moodle, Gradescope. You could go for offline and open book examinations, or try some combinations of these. Now, with this small batch, of course, we had a complete written examination where we were proctoring them. But for the large classes, what we are doing is using Moodle. Okay. Well, 550 copies also need to be corrected. One has to worry about that as well. Yeah? It could take me a few weeks to do that. So Moodle does offer you some automatic correction options. So, and then there's always this scope of, not scope, I would say, all students, they are prone to cheating. Well, at least 90% of them, they make their own WhatsApp groups and they tend to discuss. So how do you get about with this? I don't have any solution of that, but what we are going to try tomorrow, so tomorrow happens to be our major exam, is that we give them these different types of questions on Moodle. So we have multiple choice questions, true, false, numericals, where you can have randomized variables. You can shuffle these questions. It has a possibility that you give all these questions in a sequence, but the students don't like it. They object strongly that they cannot revisit a question. So we are not using the sequential part. For those of you who are not accustomed to Moodle, I would say if ever you want to go for this type of question, it's called the close question, which is fairly straightforward. Otherwise, Moodle has so much that you can get lost into it. Okay, so it has all shuffling options. It has regrading, sorry, not regarding, regrading options. So many different options, and it's actually a vast jungle out there where you can, if you don't have things to start with, you do get confused. Now we are just one last thing. So other than going with Moodle, we are also asking them to write in their answers and submit it to us. We give them some extra time for that, 15 to 20 minutes to scan all those things. So yeah, so net connectivity still remains an issue over there, right? This is something we cannot help much. Luckily, as you said, Ram, that most people do not face this issue in IIT. So where they face, there'll have to be some options that have to be seen. Yeah, please, thanks.
Okay, sorry, Samir, I didn't mean to cut you off that way, but well, I was just, you know, okay. The scope of the IIT classroom is, of course, huge in so many different ways. I don't think too many of the teachers who are worrying about this are worrying about 500 people classroom and then how to do the exam for that. But I think you've given us some very important, additional information about how one might be able to use Moodle for smaller classes. And a matter that we will be taking up, shortly in one of these discussions is what exactly is the role of the institution? Because if the institution doesn't provide some of the software and this ability, it gets very difficult for the individual teacher to start, using some of these new methodologies without this kind of support.
Yeah. So some support is required, definitely, because everybody is not a computer freak or,
Right.
Moodle that way, as I said, it's got a lot of options and one will get lost. So, and that's why I particularly wrote that closer part. So if anybody is adventurous, please start with that.
Yeah. No, I think there are a lot
is free otherwise.
Will come up, Samir. So let's, will you stop sharing your screen, please, and let's move to the next presenter, next panelist. Thank you. Angel. Angel, would you unmute yourself, please, and come on. 10 minutes.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you. Good evening, everyone, and I would like to share some of the experiences related to the teacher training as well as very specifically to the school education level, because the school setup is very different from actually what is happening in the higher education. As far as the data talks about, like mostly 80% of the students are not having any facility and internet accessibility. So more than evaluation, even online teaching itself is very challenging through system or a mobile phone. That is what is happening right now. So basically, schools have been given a guideline how to go for online education or digital education. So based on the guideline, we have categorized the schools or the facility as like what are the 5 different levels of facilities which are available, and some suggestions have been provided regarding if you have this, like as many of you have pointed out, there are places where we have only 2G, there are places there is no network at all. And among school students, we found there are more students who don't have internet facility. So that is where this TV channels have become a major reach for school students for teaching. In this case, how do we really evaluate or even assess? Because at least when they have this internet facility, teachers are having a lot of tools actually, because school level, there is no much complexity in assessing them in terms of the content. They are able to give some questions, even some open questions where short and long questions. There are some tools which help them. There are enough tools actually, online tools which can be used for, because none of the school classroom size is beyond 100. So there is no difficulty they are challenging in terms of numbers or in terms of tools. But the major issue is teachers are not aware of these tools. So from April onwards, the NCERT is running webinars to orient all the teachers on these tools. So it's an everyday program. It's almost 158 sessions have been conducted, and assessment tools alone around 10 to 12 has been introduced, which can be used for formative assessment, which can be used for summative assessment. But all these are again internet based, which are web tool based, where at least a child should have at least have a digital facility with them, as well as with internet connections. So one of the thing which is happening right now where online is going, as I said, is the TV channels. Like every state has been asked to have a TV channel for this education, and NCERT also runs, and all the central organizations also conduct classes through TV channels. The major assessment is based on the content. The only way education is going in many places is through this TV channel, live sessions, or the recorded programs which is going on. So in some of the states, what they are doing is after this TV sessions, they are having a worksheet based on which they are getting the assessment. So that's one of the practice which is happening in many states, that they have created worksheet which is distributed as a hard copy. And you know the challenge again in this, during this time, reaching a hard copy to a student. And a student is expected to complete the worksheet and then scan and put it onto a WhatsApp group. And there are several challenges in this. The moment the child puts a scan copy, many do not know how to scan. So they take a photograph. When they take a photograph, the questions are not where the answers are not clearly recorded. And a teacher is expected to correct those questions which are in a PDF or an image. Correcting becomes again a very challenging issue for the teacher. So most of the time what is happening is a serious evaluation is not at all happening. Right now, the focus is only teaching learning. Let children learn something during this COVID time. And there is no serious instruction to the school level that evaluation has to be done. The way higher education has been given guidelines, till now school education has not been given a serious guideline on what evaluation has to be done. Because this almost started in after our exams were over, like only some of the board exams were cancelled, and then they didn't do, none of the board exam has been conducted in online mode. They have gone again for a face-to-face mode. So there is no serious evaluation system in place as of today, but only formative, because we cannot leave completely without evaluation, or even at least having some kind of an assessment at the end of lesson. So some of the mostly formative assessment is happening. One thing which we have tried out with this experience, because the teacher training also has stopped during this time, the more focus at the school level is happening with teacher evaluation. How are we really giving the courses to teachers, and how are we really evaluating the teachers itself, the performance of the teachers? So like Dr. Samir was introducing some of the Moodle, but we have some experience which has taught us, like, even though Moodle has a facility, how do we really use it? We have used for mass, like, because once the teacher education comes, it's all in In Karnataka, we have to train 33,000 teachers. So 33,000, it becomes evaluation. The only option people suggest is give a quiz of multiple choice. So that 10 questions, out of that 70%, 80% let us certify. But really learning doesn't happen with that 7 or 8 multiple choice question also. So we have tried using this. There is the option called to conduct a workshop. And we used assignment also. But what is the problem with the assignment is once the students submit the assignment, the mentor is expected to correct. Correcting 33 assignments, 33,000 assignments, and each person is supposed to submit 40 assignments. So it is a huge thing. And even we started with paying money to people and evaluating each assignment one-to-one. Every state cannot invest paying 5 rupees was paid to correct one assignment. So it becomes an additional cost to the state. So this was a very challenging activity. So what we did is the next thing, we used the feature called workshop, which is there in Moodle. So we use Moodle workshop where there is a peer assessment possible. But when we give peer assessment, what we find is they all each other wanted to support each other. So they say, everything is good, 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 submit it. So this is how peer assessment was happening. So the next thought we thought is there should be some kind of a rubric for assessment, so that at least some kind of input is given. So we prepared an assessment rubric, which was integrated into this workshop mode, which actually at least some people get a guidance on what I should see in the assessment. Otherwise, they are not even able to do this. So they were able to see that rubric and then they are able to write feedback. But when we saw feedback again, people are not good at writing feedback. Then that challenge was addressed. So we thought like instead of giving feedback, let us give a very descriptive rubric saying that if they have done this, this, this. So all the challenge was actually to create a rubric which really communicates to them for this evaluation process to happen. But we are still in the process of coming to a fine-tuned rubric and all. But at least we have achieved little, to say 50%. We have improved in this process. And when we have given rubrics, it has brought a little bit seriousness into in the teachers, and as well as this is being implemented by some teachers to their students as well. They are doing the same process, at least for higher secondary students with the free Moodle. 50 people or whatever is available, they are using that. But this learning experience, they are taking into Google Classroom also. So this is something which we thought that we are still in an improving process of evaluation. But one main other point which I would like to say, even this quiz, we are right now doing a training of SRGs for Andhra Pradesh. What we understood is many times we think like we should not put more restrictions on the quiz. We usually keep in online courses the quiz open for the whole process of, like we have 10 or 18 modules. So we usually open the quiz throughout the 18 modules. We were not getting the number of people who are clearing the quiz. The number when we see 50% don't do till the last minute. But what we did this time is we said, you will go through module and it will be only open for 24 hours. Then the quiz will close. Then only you can proceed tonight. This imposed their process in a better way. And this quiz also, we made it like the randomization really helped, because we did a small a pilot study also with a group of people. When you give randomized, we think still that like 10 questions, they can copy this. Answers like easy to say A, B, C, D, and then they can tick and complete the quiz. That's what was the hunch. So what we thought is we did a test like with this. What we found is when you randomize the questions as well as the options, the percentage of remembering the question, even we gave the answer sheet to them. We say, this is the question, this is the answer. So we gave in the writing and we gave and told them, now you try to answer it. But what we understood is at least only 20% of the people still can see the answer sheet and get the answers, get full marks. Okay. So these are some of the tips which we can use in the existing, at least in the existing system, how we can add items. And we also integrated items to be not just a quiz. We have integrated like image hotspots. We have integrated certain like filling in the word with which is a very descriptive and then picking up. So these, for all this, we have used a hybrid model because Moodle alone doesn't have an option. So we have integrated H5P into it. Even when we are doing sessions on Zoom, we are using H5P links and we are giving it for assessment. So a hybrid model has really helped. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll just stop.
Thank you very much, Angel. I didn't realize that you were dealing with 33,000 students and 40 assignments each, and this is a nightmare. I don't know how anybody can evaluate those things, but even without COVID, I think it must have been a problem. So this is, but it sort of it gives a certain sense of perspective. I think you have had, you made a number of very, very useful and very pertinent suggestions. Even within the existing Moodle framework, there are, there are things that you can implement. There are challenges that you all have faced, which you can share with us. I've just requested Madhurima to copy the entire chat proceedings on Zoom and put it in our Slack channel, because there are many suggestions that people are coming up with that are worthy of being recorded, and other people could eavesdrop and just listen to them at some point in time. Okay, so our final panelist, Bindu, before I see the raised hand. Yeah. So the final panelist is Professor Sarangapani, where I cannot see her, but ma'am, would you?
Yes, can you see me now? Yeah.
Okay, so your 10 minutes starts now.
Okay. So I am one of those who's actually used Moodle and taught online since 2015, and I haven't been forced to do it. We actually chose to do it because it was a very suitable way for us to get experts located wherever they were to work with working professionals who were students of our MA education program, which we introduced at TISS. So what I'm going to share about ideas regarding assessment is drawing from that work, which is now quite mature. But also more recently, over the last 5 years, we've been working with school teachers and using TISX, which is built on OpenEdX, as another online platform. And there also assessments has been quite important. What is common to both these groups of students, in the one case, it's just like 40, 50 students, and in the other case, the numbers go up to 300, is that a large proportion of them are from very modest backgrounds. Especially with our students, 30% haven't even used computers for work until they join the program at TISS. So they really have to migrate into using this environment. And when we began, there were questions about whether students would take for it and whether it would enable us to overcome equity issues. And my experience has been that it does. But one of the important considerations that should inform design is to make it asynchronous. If we're going to load online teaching on synchronous interaction, then it brings a lot of problems that affect equity. But if we can use asynchronous modalities more effectively, then we're actually able to include many more people into the classroom. And what has been really important in the design is the interactivity that we ensure. And assessment has become really very integral to interactivity. I think all of us in classrooms ask questions. It contributes to our formative assessment, and we make sense of where students are. We kind of access those epistemic hooks on which we hang our lessons. And so the interactivity is very essential even in the online medium, and assessment is really what enables this interactivity to happen. So we've really begun to take the whole question of how we design for assessment very seriously, because it not only enables us to assess what students have achieved, but it's actually integral to the pedagogic process itself. In other words, a good assessment tool enables students to recognize what is important for them to know and understand, and it communicates the teacher's expectations to the student. So the act of answering assignments and quizzes and so on enables students to internalize and consolidate what we're trying to teach them. And I found it really important, therefore, to pay a lot of attention to assessment design. I wanted to just, so in addition to, MCQs and other kinds of tools, I wanted to share a few practices that I've been using over the last 10 years with my students, which I find really effective, and my students also really find very useful. The first of these is that the assessment item has to be broken up and scaffold students. And it needs to include a combination of both things which are more closely tied to the lesson, which is, or the topic, which is the focus, or the new concept we're introducing. But it must also scaffold students to move into application. And breaking up the assignment into bits really has enabled students to progress, engage with the different expectations that we are setting up for them. The second kind of assessment that I have done and found very effective, and because I teach education to postgraduate students, is to get them to go out, observe an aspect of teaching practice or learning practice, record it, document it, and then reflect on it. And when they have to really reflect on real life examples, there's almost no opportunity to plagiarize because everybody's observation is unique. And so their reflections are related to their own observations. Having tried that a couple of times, I moved to a third form of assessment using, again, asynchronous communication, the forum on Moodle. And what I started to ask students to do is to post their observation and post their reflection on it for other students to see and read. And other students would read, get ideas from their classmates, and then proceed to do their own assessment. And it was quite all right. The fact that it was all out there in the open actually checked the possibilities of plagiarism and so on, because it was all out there in the open. And it was equally important for other students to read each other's answers and the uniqueness of observations. So actually enabled this kind of open assessment to take place. And then I pushed it one step further, which is to ask students to comment on each other's assessments as a part of the design itself. So if a framework X has been used to critically observe and comment on a particular field observation, the other student would have to reflect on whether this observation, the framework has been applied in the appropriate way and what more insights could be gauged. And in order to make this happen effectively, I had to set up some standards for students. I had to tell them, what does a substantive post comprise? What should a substantive post be like? So you have to kind of model your expectations so that students begin to then, follow the practice. And so you find that the assessment and the pedagogy kind of go hand in hand. And it's quite effective. Students really enjoy it because they're applying their knowledge, they're reading each other's work, and it's a more cooperative kind of situation and not only, it's not opaque, the whole assessment process. The last example that I want to share also, and which I've also, used the forum very effectively to do, is to get students to read and then apply their understanding on a case that I give them. So for example, we have read Bruner's theory of folk pedagogy and what it presents. And then I tell them that, look, you are in an SCRT, you're working there, you've been appointed there as a young professional, and the SPD of the state wants you to decide whether a particular program should be taken up or not. And you have to write a 1,000-word response to him, advising him on what is the right thing to do. So when you put students in this kind of, case or a problem that they have to solve, then again, their application, they really have to, they compel themselves to think in an application mode, and their answers are out there for each other to read. This modality has been actually very, very effective in the master's teaching that I've been doing over the years. And I find that it controls for some of the problems that we commonly talk about, which is, whether all the assessment just piles up at one point, and then students are just busy doing assignments and they're not actually reading and understanding. It takes care of that. It takes care of the problem of plagiarism, definitely. And it makes the assessment very integral to the pedagogy. So I just thought I would share these practices as things that I have found particularly useful in the classroom. One of the standards that I feel we should set ourselves in this online space is that, can we get to know our students so well that we can actually write a recommendation for them? Which is a facility we have when we interact with them in classrooms. And so that's the kind of quality of interaction that I think we need to enable to take place in this medium itself. I think the point that was made earlier about rubrics is very important because it sets up the expectations that we have for students. One of the problems that I've been experiencing about the medium is that it kind of weighs everything in the literate modality. Unless students write, you can't really do very much. So it's kind of weighed on that side. It's not a bad thing in academia. In a postgraduate program, you're supposed to now become much more competent with academic writing. But for those who are coming from backgrounds which are not English speaking in schooling, there's a kind of a steep climb for them to get to that point. So I've actually been thinking that maybe in addition to this kind of assessment, maybe it would be a good idea to include vivas that can be held as well to complement what we assess through the written mode for students. Yeah, these are the few things that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Padma. This is extremely useful. I know that your experience is with education, so you've been you're in a very verbal subject where a lot of things are spoken and articulated. And I know that there are among the people who are listening in today a lot of teachers of science who may or may not be able to adapt some of the things directly, but I think that your suggestion that that evaluation be integral to the pedagogy is something that is sort of extremely important, and we use it sort of instinctively. I mean, those of us who have taught for many years know that until you give the students an idea of the expectations and the sort of model answers things, you find that they rise to the occasion only after that. Okay.
Rama, just in that context, just want to add. So therefore, having smaller assignments which are paced over the semester is much more useful than just piling it on.
Certainly, I think many of the MOOCs use that kind of format where a lecture will suddenly stop and it does not progress until you have answered some questions. But numbers. I mean, how does one deal with huge classes? While we'll now move over to the discussion part of our panel discussion, where we'll take questions from everybody. I noticed that Bindu has her hand up and would like to briefly share her screen and tell us something. Go ahead, Bindu. Unmute yourself, please.
I'll unmute myself. Yeah. And host has disabled screen sharing for me. Can you enable it?
Yes, in a minute. Done.
Okay. So I want to, here, this is the one. Can you see this? Let me enlarge it. Wait. I share screen. Okay, I want to...
You unshared it. Yeah, that's good.
Can you see this?
Yes,
yes. Is it all right? Well, I'm just telling you about the Google Forms. Actually, it works quite well for here. Okay, now I can see you. So, what Google Forms, you can pick a type of test that you want. You can pick a worksheet, a blank quiz, etc., and it issues a ticket. You can then make your question, and then you can make it multiple choice. You can add all the options. You can keep the answer key, and it really works very well for quizzes. So the Google form, if you go to blank quizzes, there are also worksheets, and it's completely anonymous in the sense each person taking the quiz has a has a password that they can use. So this is so these Google Forms are one way that I have experimented with, and the other one, I'm going to stop and share something else. The other one is something I found from our own site, your own site. That was this. Wait a minute. Sorry.
You mean our Slack channel?
Yeah, on the Slack channel. I actually experimented with it.
Okay.
So let me
Socrates.
Socrates, yeah. So I experimented with Socrates, and I was going to show you what I'd done with Socrates, but it seems I'm not getting it. Sorry. But anyway, Socrates is very nice. And I experimented with Socrates also. And the nice thing about Socrates is, again, they have to enter a password to get into that quiz, and each one has a distinct password. So you can shuffle around the quizzes, and then they have a password, and they get into the quiz, and then you can evaluate them on the basis of that. So these are a couple of things which I am actually doing and experimenting with, which I thought I would share with you. That's all.
Thank you very much, Bindu. Madhu, would you please just sort of, start fielding some of the questions that have come up on the discussions so far?
Sure. Let me start off. Professor Arivaragan has been asking a couple of questions. One of them is, which one is preferred, a proctored exam or a non-proctored objective test? And also how to conduct an online examination for a descriptive test or in a descriptive form.
Right. Well, Samir to some extent had said that, it doesn't matter, don't have proctoring. But I think that was mostly tongue in cheek, because I think we do realize that our students have a tendency to consult each other.
Why I said that was because, we can't proctor, unfortunately, in this situation.
No, actually, one can proctor. One gives the exam at the beginning of the lecture, and they have a password, and then they turn it in at the end of the lecture before they leave the Zoom classroom. So there is actually, within that 1 hour, they don't have time to go around looking everywhere for the answers and stuff like that.
I mean,
so.
Okay, look,
we can do it and give them enough so that it's only about half a minute per question that they have to.
Believe me, all these kids are a quarter of my age, I guess, or 1/3 at least. They are much, much better with all the technologies that exist, and I don't even know about them.
Right. Now, the more substantive one, Padma, can I request you please to respond to the second part of the question, which is on the, how does one evaluate courses with, where the answers are descriptive rather than, something that can just go in the MCQ format. Padma, would you?
I think the way in which one evaluates them anyway, I don't know whether there's anything different that is involved. I think having a rubric.
In the online format.
In the online, I don't know. I'm really at a loss. I don't know that it actually involves anything different. But the really important thing in the online space is to give them the feedback when you have done that evaluation. Maybe in an MCQ or something, it's okay for them to get a mark. But when we are evaluating qualitative or descriptive things, why we find a certain formulation good or inadequate has to be communicated to students. And when we don't do that, I find that students lose interest and become very casual about the assessment. So simply if we're able to communicate that, we're reading what you're writing and we are paying attention to it, if we are able to communicate that to students, I think that really lifts the expectation and the rigor of the entire interaction. And that's, I find, generally improves the quality of how seriously students take it as well. But I'm hoping that most people who are in this group are not dealing with very, very large numbers, in which case I think this kind of feedback becomes very difficult to provide. One of the problems that I have experienced practically is that most universities don't realize that online, even if your students are not on campus, that it's taking up as much as of your time, if not more.
More.
Taking up more.
More actually, takes up more.
Teachers who have, talked about online teaching, they're spending much more of their time and much more of it sitting down.
It takes more time and people don't realize it. The one thing which I have been able to do sometimes when, it's a lot of time and I'm running out of time, then I do post consolidated feedback. If I'm not able to give individualized feedback to every student, at the end of the assessment, I put up at least the 10 points that I've noted, and ask students to please think of their answers in relation to this general feedback that I'm giving. But the giving of feedback is very, very important.
Okay.
Can I,
There was a
can I
follow-up
add a
for the question from to Professor Bamba, which is, if one uses Google Forms,
Yeah.
how do you ensure typing in mathematical symbols and other things? Because it doesn't have an inbuilt.
It has you can do it with Mathematica actually. Wolfram has a link with Google Form.
Okay.
You can do that, or you can cut and paste, PDF fonts there. That can also
an image?
That can also be done. Image, yeah, cut and paste the images, or it has a link with Mathematica. And now Mathematica has come up. Today I got in the email from Mathematica, they have come up with some new evaluation form. So if you have a licensed version of Mathematica, that should be really good, because Wolfram always comes up with some interesting stuff. So I'm going to study that this week on what new stuff Mathematica has come up with. That should be interesting. About these evaluation of pedagogy and written evaluation. Well, I mean, term papers are a way that one did it. That it would be like those open book tests that Ram is working on with somebody else. That would be one way of gauging.
Okay. One thing that nobody has actually talked about, I'll come to you in a moment, Samir, is how have people coped with lab exams? And, how does one actually evaluate laboratory courses? Has anything been done, or what are people planning to do in the coming semester? Okay, so this is a question that
yes,
like
actually,
some
IIT
feedback
Bombay has a
momentarily, please, Bindu, in sequence. Samir, you had something to say.
So these are some things related to the previous discussion. So although we were always saying that Moodle has this option of MCQs and all, but it also has options for long answers, and you can also handwrite things and post it into Moodle. So that's also there. You can actually solve your paper and make a scan and post it up. So that's another option. Another thing which people use a lot is GradeScope, which uses only these handwritten answers. So these are the two systems I know that one can use for offline examinations, if you want to call them. Then there was one more thing which I had in mind about that. No, once I remember, I'll get back to you.
I think I suddenly get the reason why the question exists. It's because students have access to the book. So I suppose the question is, how do you design the questions so that students simply cannot copy answers from other sources, and how to make it?
These are also issues.
I think that's really the question.
Yeah.
Can I add a point
when you have the online examination format, there is a finite time. There is all sorts of things to be thought about in that space. There was Angel. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just trying to add a little, because at school level, this descriptive question kind of assessment is happening basically with two ways. Some of the web-based tools are being used. Like, for example, there is a software, like a web page called Go Formative. So it gives an option for scanning and sending the handwritten content, and which can be analyzed a little as well. So some of the teachers are using that, and even simple PDFs are being asked to submit from searching keywords in that, and then just trying to, because it cannot be completely assessed and there is no direct system. Some of the techniques are being used by school teachers as well as. It's not that they are leaving out completely descriptive.
I see. Bindu, did you want to add to that?
I just wanted to say that IIT Bombay has a very nice website with a number of experiments designed, and it tells you how to do that. And I was in another meeting in which, there are some TAs are allowed in the lab. 1 or 2 people are allowed in the lab. So what the TAs do is they go and they take data from the experiments, and then that data is distributed to various people online, and the analysis of the data is done, whereas they don't actually hand. A lot of these experiments are black boxes which give out data. So those experiments, a few individuals in the lab do, and then distribute the
Share the
data
data.
among
So, I mean,
students.
the laboratory experiment has become another theoretical, or a numerical analysis.
Exactly,
Right.
something like that.
No, I mean, this is something that I think we need to share with each other. What are we doing about lab courses? Because,
Maybe maybe it is
we-
good to just postpone them until we can access the lab.
Padma, you see, the thing is that the condition of the pandemic is not going to it's not going to sort of vanish very, very quickly. Even as we are, in the last week, people have said that don't expect a vaccine until the middle of next year, which means that we have to really think about at least a year or a year and a half of instruction this way. And lab experiments may not be there's something that you can do away with for that much time. Anyway, if there are other
I think Professor Seshadri wants to say something.
Professor Ghoshal has said that we can have Gedanken experiments, but you cannot have Gedanken experiments in too many areas. But Seshadri, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, no, this was just in the context of what Professor Bindu Bama was telling about, giving some question in the beginning of the lecture and then asking them. I mean, the only problem there is, these can only be questions which can really not test any deep understanding, because while it is true that they will not have time to consult each other, they also will not have time to think about it because the lecture is going on. So that's what I wanted to mention.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
Madhu?
Can I say something?
Yeah, sorry, somebody was.
Yes, Kunsiyaji.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking,
just regarding
can we give 40 different questions?
Just we'll come back to that statement. Qudsiya Tehseen was saying something, please.
Yeah, regarding the lab exercises, I'm saying that because as we see that the pandemic is not going very soon, and so we have to, work in that direction just to design the lab exercises, which may be very different from the routine ones which we used to do. Because here you can see the requirements are different. Even I have gone through a paper in Science, and they also actually said that some of the biodiversity type of exercises where the students have to go to the different habitats and they have to collect the samples, there also we can do some sort of you can say videography or any such type of thing, and then that could be integrated with simulations and all, so that the students can learn a lot. There may be queries associated with that, but they have to be, we have to do a lot of work to come up with that. And as it has been suggested that IIT Bombay has got a very good site. I have also gone through. Some of the exercises are there, but still that is in the developing stage, and not many exercises are there related to life sciences or others. So it's really a big task, huge task to come up with the exexercises. Yeah, because we can collect the data.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
And
this
we
is
can
not
give
just
it.
for the sciences also, because field work is a very important part of many social science courses. People do
Yes.
have to go out and collect information and so on. And
Yes.
I don't think that we are thinking too much about it. Padma Sarangapani said that we can just wait until the pandemic is over. And if anything, we've learned about how the government responses to the, or how let's say, the social responses to the pandemic. In March, we were thinking that it was all going away in 3 weeks or 21 days.
Yes.
And then there was lockdown 1 and 2 and 3 and God knows. And now we are told that we are going through the second wave of infection. And let's also face it, our country is seeing 90,000 plus cases a day. So this option of waiting until,
No.
waiting
You
until
cannot
everything
wait.
is all much better may not be very realistic. I think we're going to have to figure out ways of, uh, as it's been suggested by Kutsia and by Bindu, that there may be a new way in which we have to do some of these experiments. Whether it's ideal to just have one person collect the data and all of us analyze it offline. It's a different way of doing experiments, but one has to think about it.
No, I think the point I wanted to make, Dr.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ramaswamy, is more that we cannot load the medium with every expectation of the experiences that we have been using to, in our pedagogy and so on. So we will have, for some things, we will have to wait because the medium will not enable a wet lab experience, which is so important for a certain kind of skill set to develop in students, right? So
Yeah.
I'm saying that we then begin to select what the medium will allow also, and wait for other things is really the point I'm making. And I'm saying this because there is this, otherwise we ignore what is crucial about these live lab experiences. And I'm saying this from a history of work, even in school education, people have not been taking building labs seriously, and for the last 5-6 years, they've been selling this notion of a virtual lab experience to schools, which is like nonsense, right?
Absolutely.
There is no substitute. So I'm just drawing our attention to not raising the expectations of what we can achieve beyond what is reasonable to do.
No, true. The question is really that have we explored all the options, and what does it mean to educate somebody in a subject if you haven't imparted this very important component to them? Some institutions are thinking in terms of having staggered laboratory experiments. Instead of people arriving on the same day to do the experiments, we have sparser laboratory occupation, but people coming on designated days in order to do this, because the hands-on part of this education has been a very important one, even for those of us who have gone on to do theory in later life. It's been important as a way of learning about the subject, and it's not just the sciences or biology versus physics versus chemistry. I think this is important to a whole lot of disciplines, and we have to rethink the way in which we are teaching some of these things.
I was just thinking about in IIT, could you get a virtual reality? Do you have a virtual reality team? Because that's another way of doing hands-on experiments.
Well, it's not quite experiments there. You see, there it becomes a case of what some designer thinks the experiment is all about.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm saying
so it is again a mock-up of something which is there. There's a comment from Angel to everybody that simulated experiments are being used at the school level.
Yes.
But through virtual labs, but assessment cannot be done easily. That's of course one point. There is some material that's available for some kinds of experiments in physics. And for some time now, we all know that dissections, because of animal rights and the various issues to do with that, there's much software available for dissections and things, but this is not something that has been developed for a lot of subjects. Okay. Anyway, Madhu, move to the next.
At least at school level, we don't have a very great issue because we have a limited subjects to be experimented, like where experiments are involved. So, and there is a limited number of experiments as well. As rightly pointed out by Dr. Padma, it's not really happening even otherwise, not in pandemic situation, even otherwise, there is no proper labs. It's only for the practical exam to experiments are done. But at least during this time, the simulated experiments have at least gone to give the experience of trying to do something and understand.
Okay, Madhu?
Yeah, so there were a couple of comments regarding the labs, including having lab on wheels by Professor KPN Murthy. Professor Haribabu wants to say something. So.
Okay.
Sir, if you can unmute.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Hari.
Good afternoon. I just joined late, so I've just been following what's been going on. I just have a question, that has to be discussed. The online teaching is not exactly like classroom teaching, right? We also have this practice of evaluating courses, right? Students evaluate courses. How do we do this in online mode of teaching? Right? That's an important question because we don't know what is the kind of involvement or exposure of students in an online teaching where it's continuous or the problems of continuity. We don't have this information on this. So then the question of course evaluation becomes very important. So which is important, which most of the institutions are now following.
No, that's true. So this is what we are trying to grapple with over here. You see, the one part of evaluation we have got no control over. If the UGC says you must have your final end exams, then directors, vice chancellors, and principals will see to it that we have some exams, and some marks are given, and some students are passed. That is, of course, one part of the whole story. What we are trying to discuss over here is that when we as teachers go out into the online space, how do we ensure that our students are being evaluated fairly, and what are the best practices that we could follow? And this is not an easy it's not easy, and I don't think there's any single answer to it because different classes, different sizes, different types of subjects, all these are going to play a bit of a role.
There are two other questions which are kind of repeated questions. One is like, do things like Google Forms have a timer in them, time management for the exam? I'll just pose the next question so that you can choose. How do you ensure that there is honesty from the students when they answer these questions in online exams? A sense of proctoring, but...
Okay, Samir, do you have a timer on the... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so timers are there everywhere in Google.
Timers are there in Google.
Yeah, even Google, Moodle, all those things have time.
All of them have time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And about honesty, one can't really say anything. No. But if you give limited time, the chances of honesty are greater.
At the expense of course, limited time, meaning that you can't even think about the question.
Yes. Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay.
No, the modus operandi is very different over here. So when you have a large class, then all they do is they share the questions, solve, and then they send back the answer. They have their own WhatsApp groups or whatever. Yeah. So as I said, proctoring is something which you cannot worry about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not too many other questions, but there is again a repeated comment that we need to have policy changes if we have to ensure that online teaching makes any sense, because you can't be teaching the old way on a new platform. So.
Okay. Of course, we are having to teach, and many of us are teaching the old way on a new platform, which is unfortunately the case. What I was hoping, of course, see, the thing is that today we wanted to focus the discussion around evaluations and what people are doing. There are a whole bunch of tools, and we can share with each other what are the tools that are available and what's the best thing to do. But I think we have to realize that there are some aspects of our teaching that will not be subject to evaluation. Just because we cannot evaluate those aspects of the courses in an easy way because in the online format. One extreme level is what KP and Murthy said somewhere, that why must we even have exams? So this just becomes a whole bunch of courses that everybody takes, and then at the end of it, you get out of it what you will. But that's but most of our students are here for jobs. Most of our students need these courses because they have to be certified, and so it's also important that we certify them within a reasonable time frame, and with certification that actually means something. So at the end of it, if we are still going to be giving degrees or what have you that people have earned, it must be pretty. It must be straight. So there cannot be a doubt as to what they must have learned during these courses. So it's an important issue, and it's not something that can just be legislated easily. Let me just take one last comment from Seshadri, who has physically raised his hand.
I actually see a point in what Professor Murthy was telling. You see, when we are teaching a course, we just teach the course and at best we give pass or fail. Now, there are different aspects of the course which are useful for different kinds of profession. Whoever wants to select a person for a given profession conducts their own exam and selects depending on what quality is required. See, when you give a general exam, it's very difficult to give a very general question which can cover all aspects and all things which are required from the course.
Okay. Thank you, Sesh. I think you have to normalize when we see the kind of numbers that are involved. If nothing else, we are going from classes of 8 and 10 to 33,000. All right, so there has to normalize. I did notice that Devashish wanted to say something. Devashish, would you please unmute thyself and speak?
Yeah, actually, maybe you can also say I have written it in the comments a couple of times, and I see that Sumanta Sahu makes the same observation. There's this group in ISAR Bhopal led by Amber Jain. So you are familiar with it, Ram, so you may want to tell people about Examiner.in. Sumanta Sahu has made the point that it can be randomized, but it can do actually much more than that.
Right. Okay, so this is to share with everybody a software tool. We're putting up this information about Examiner.in. This will be on, we'll just write a bit and put it on the Google pages as well as on the Slack channel. This is a software which doesn't just jumble answers, and you can actually make some very imaginative questions by changing parameters for each examinee. So the chances of honesty getting increased. So that would be one thing. We'll certainly make this known to everyone on this particular channel, but this is not possible for every subject. Examiner is there for a certain number of subjects so far, but it gives you a way of how does one make an online tool which is based in India and our kind of examination pattern, and for different subjects we could do some, I think that this is an effort that needs to be expanded certainly. So that's one thing over here.
Yeah, it's actually broader. It's the website is Creates. I have shared it in the chat box.
Yeah.
And Examiner is only one aspect of it.
Yeah.
And in the evaluation, it uses different kinds. Somebody was asking about time-bound nature. So it can customize your time-bound nature in various different ways. So just go and have a look, I would say.
No, certainly we need to sort of expand on that and let everybody know about it. No, I was just pointing out that it may not be suitable right now for all subjects, and it's something which has to be worked on.
No, I just wanted to sorry, last point. When you could make it for your own subject, because I think it offers enough flexibility and they're willing to listen to your needs if it comes to that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but maybe Professor Samir can come in here, because I think Moodle also allows this randomization to a certain extent.
To a large extent, it allows randomization of variables. It allows randomization of questions. So you can select random questions out of a question bank that you make, and it allows you to shuffle the questions. It also allows you to put the questions in a sequence, which means that you have to solve one, then go to two. So you cannot jump back to the first question. So so all these options are there. But I think the Examiner, since you're developing it right here, it can have many more options and we could incorporate a lot more suggestions over here than using Moodle then.
No, I think it's sort of, it's a very, it's a sophisticated package already, but it's something that, that can actually adapt even further to the times as the
exactly.
Something over here. Okay, so that brings us to about 4:31, and sort of we'll wind down this particular session of the the discussion on this forum. Let me formally thank everyone for participating and sharing this information. And let me make a request that you see, this is a community effort that is starting out right now, and I would like that those of you who have contributed to this discussion also contribute in the Slack channel and on the Google pages by joining into this discussion, posting suggestions, sending opinions, and so on and so forth, which Madhurima, Felix, myself, others will all get together, and we will see that it's made available to everybody.
Yes.
See, because we cannot keep coming back to some of these issues over and again, especially when people have shared and given so generously information, opinions, and suggestions. So my request to all people who are on this today, please join the Slack channel and contribute your suggestions as well. We'll have the third panel discussion 2 weeks from this Sunday. And one of the issues that keeps coming over and over again is what is the role of the institution? What is the kind of support that is needed for online teaching, not just from your head of department, but also from the vice chancellors, your directors? What is the kind of institutional support that is necessary? In some of the bigger institutions, this may not seem like much of an issue, but in the colleges and in smaller universities located elsewhere, this is a real problem. So I'm going to try to get some of these people to come and talk to us about where they play a role and what they can do. So with that, let me thank all of you for participating today. Cheers and goodbye.
Thank you.